So guys, everyone's always complaining, right? That's what you hear half the time when someone like gets on here and starts talking about fishing, right? I do a ton of videos where I'm not complaining about stuff. Tons of videos on baits and everything else like that. I actually got another video where I'm gonna be like, you want to talk about people complaining? So many people in the comments complain about this next topic I'm about to bring up. I'm doing a video on it about crankbaits and tuning crankbaits and just baits in general and all this stuff. But that's for another time, but I'm going to get into that. Here, we're talking about MLF and them changing their outlook or rules. I guess it's their rules, but it's their rules about the screens. The screens on, I guess, the front of your boat or at your windshield or whatever, and how big they can be, or I don't know. I'll be honest with you. They put it on there. I've got two Garmins. Okay. I'll show them to you right now. This is what I got. So I have two Garmins. My windshield's like literally right here. They don't sit up high. They're like what you would normally have. And then I've got two graphs up front. So I've got four graphs. Maybe they're 12s. They're 12-inch graphs. Look, that's how much I know. That's how much I'm concerned. I think they're 12-inch graphs. Plenty big enough. The graphs back here, I've never understood why they have to be so big. I understood one time with side imaging, but everything's so good now. 12-inch is plenty, all you need. A lot of people are like, why do you need two graphs? I'll be honest with you. Everything in my boat is not necessarily for, like, I need two 12-inch graphs. What I've learned over the years is this. And I'll go into this real quick. Everything on my boat can break. Everything. My rods, my reels, my baits, my boat, my graphs, power poles, engine, trolling motor. I've never owned a boat that didn't have, or how about this? Everything I've ever had has broken. I've had a broken trolling motor, broken graphs, broken boat, broken trailer, flat tires, power poles, engine, batteries, live wells, everything. And I'm not talking about in this boat. I'm talking about every boat I've ever owned in my life over all those years. Something has always broken. I'm sitting here going over all the things that have broken in my lifetime on a boat. It's a lot. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. It's not that you grow accustomed to it, but it is what it is. I like having two of the exact same graphs. My other one up there is also, so I have three 12-inch Garmins. Why? Just in case one of them goes out, I still have two. So if one of these goes out and I have to get it replaced or fixed, in the meantime, I still have the same graph, right? That will work. If my front one goes out and something happens to it, I can take one of these off the back and put it up front. So a lot of the things, and it's taken me years to get to this position, but a lot of the things, that's why I have three 36-volt batteries back there. Everyone's like, do you really need three 36s? Well, a couple times a year I do. But if one goes out, I still have two 36 volts. You can't go buy these at Walmart at 12 o'clock at night before a tournament, right? So if I'm traveling like I do, I travel here and there, but it doesn't even matter. Even if you travel an hour or two away and it's the night before a tournament, right? And one of them you realize goes out, you just can't go buy one like right then and there for the tournament the next day. And I just don't like, man, a lot of angler of the years, a lot of money I've won because I've had backups to things, right? Now say, hey, maybe you don't need that. I personally do. So that's why I have things the way I do. Now back to the original thing. When we talk about these graphs, they had all this stuff, and when I started reading about it, they have to be 6 inches from here and this and and I was like, whatever. I don't think this applies to me, so I didn't even read the rule. I'll be honest with you, I didn't read how big it was going to be. I'm like, if they're going to get out in my boat and start looking about how big something is, I was like, I don't think I have anything excess to where it's like overly big to where it's going to be an issue. However, in the scheme of all these things, I never cared. And this is all has to do with live scope and graphs and technology. I would say live scope probably put it over the edge in the sense of graphs were getting bigger because of side imaging and everything else. And guys were having 5 graphs before live scope. Live scope just kind of like the Alabama rig. It's like if you don't put a limitation on something so good, it's just going to get bigger. And that's what I think happened in live scope. Getting a bigger screen for side imaging wasn't a big, it helped, but it wasn't like that's what you needed. The Alabama rig started getting into be 15 baits, 15 spinners, 19 hooks, all these, the bigger it got, the more effective it was. Live scope's always going to be the bigger, the better, the stronger, the return, the better screens, the better live scope transducers, all those things. It's helpful. There's a reason they put limits on that stuff, because if you don't put limits, it'll never stop. It'll just keep. Someone will always want to figure out a way to get better, and it is what it is. That's where we live. That's why the 250s. That's why we have 250s on here. Dude, you can put 500s on these bass boats if you want. Like, guys would want to be able to go 120 if they could across the water, right? Not even to catch fish, just because that's what they'd want to do. So there are limitations. There are limitations on certain things. I never thought a bigger screen when I say a bigger screen, like, I didn't think that was the biggest threat. And I'm not saying any of this of live scope or any of this is a threat. I'm just saying I never really cared about how big of a screen someone got. Never bothered me at all. The transducers somewhat started to bother it. How about this? It didn't bother me. I just wasn't proud. How about this? This is what it is. You know how, like, at times, like, when you talk about the way you fish, like, you're proud of it, like you're proud to be a fisherman, or like you're proud to go catch fish a certain way. Like, I swear, I think now without live scope, like, I think there's a certain pride people take in, like, yeah, I don't have live scope. I went and caught them the old fashioned way. There's pride in that. There's a lot of pride. There's a lot of things that are prideful that you used to do back in the day that you're still proud of, like things that the guys that can go fix things on their own, the guys that, like, can use their hands to do stuff. I mean, people take pride in a lot of different things. I think that's beginning to be the same case with fishing. Is it like, oh, you didn't have to use live scope, you could just go out there and catch them without it? I think there's some pride in that. When I start seeing guys with like 5 transducers, and you just look at them, and these are like elite guys, right? And you just look at them like, it just didn't look like it stopped. It stopped looking like fit. Like, it didn't look like what they were doing was fishing, right? I don't know what it looked like, but it just seemed like so much of an overkill. It's like those guys that, like, always talk about their bass boats and how fast they go. And they get in from a tournament or whatever, and the first question, I can't tell you how many times everyone's like, "Hey, nice boat. How fast does it go?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know?" I'm like, I don't know. 60 something. Maybe it gets up to 70. I couldn't tell you. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I don't know how fast it goes. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I've got 500 pounds of gear in here. I've got live wells full. I've got 2 people in here. I've never driven this thing all out fast unless I'm, like, in a tournament. Other than that, it goes like 40, because that's how fast I drive around everywhere. 40. I can tell you how fast my trolling motor goes. I know that for a fact, but I just don't care about how fast, because it going faster, 1.3 miles an hour faster, doesn't help me catch any fish any better. I'm just saying it doesn't. So, like, there's certain things that I don't find that important. And one was these screens, but, like, having a multiple transducers, where we're going to put 10 on there and all these different things, it started just not looking like fishing. I don't know what it looked like. How about this? I wouldn't have been, like, proud of that, to, like, look how many transducers I have. I need all those to catch one fish. So either way, MLF decided, I think it got on, like, Facebook messaging, or they must have had a bunch of phone calls, and all of a sudden it was all these people asking and commenting and didn't like it. And I don't think they were up. I didn't read them all. It didn't seem like anyone was upset about the live scope. It was just like, all right, we're going to, like, we're having to put all these rules in here about what electronics and how high they have to be and all these different things and the screens. And I'm going, yeah, I don't even think that's really even a big deal. It might be a big deal for like safety, like being able to see over the screens. See a couple of these young guys now that are not exactly tall, and I don't know how they see over their screens. But either way, because a lot of bass boats too, depending on what bass boats you have, you either sit down low in it or up high. But I just think MLF was like, hey, you know what? We ain't got time for this. Like, y'all go do what you want to do. Plus, a lot of guys spent thousands of dollars on these electronics, and there was no rule last year that you couldn't have it. And now all of a sudden, like, they went and bought a screen, and now it might not fit within their requirements. That would suck, man. That, like, imagine all of a sudden you go out and buy a brand new bass boat, $100,000 bass boat, and the next year they're like a month later they're like, hey, by the way, no more 250s. And you're like, I just wouldn't spend all this, right? And so this was one of those things where it wasn't something that was, like I said, multiple live scopes. It was screens on the thing. Like, get a big screen. I don't care. I don't think it helps you anymore, in the sense of, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't think anyone's complaining about it, right? So I think they were trying to still go into figuring out how to deal with live scope and all those things and make restrictions to please people. But once again, I don't think they really thought it out, maybe, and that, like, hey, that's really not going to help things. Right, that's not really pleasing a lot of people, because I don't think people aren't really complaining about screens. Like, you don't see a bunch of stuff on here ever on YouTube, people talking about screens. You know, it's kind of like Bass, MLF tried to do something, Bass tried to do nothing. But if you talk to a lot of those Bass guys about live scope, they're like, yeah, all the restrictions didn't do anything. It didn't change a thing. Like, taking all those transducers off, it, in the scheme of things, it probably didn't change much, right? It changed the look, which I think is good. That 5 transducers is a little bit ridiculous. When you got one out there, 2 facing this way and 2 out the back, or whatever, however they had it. I think that was, the look of it looked bad for fishing. But I don't think that, none of that's going to change what actually is going to happen in a lot of these tournaments. Their scheduling might, but and live scope's live scope. You either got to get rid of it all. Well, I would still say MLF got rid of it all to a degree, in the sense of, when I say got rid of it all, is you can't, like, limit live scope. There's no way to limit it. It's always going to be what it is. There's a way to do what MLF did, was like they eliminated it for a period, so there's no limitations. It's cut off, and then they allow it in some, right? In some quarters, and then invitationals, they allow it one day and not in the next. That's not a limiting thing. That's like, you can use it or not use it. But trying to limit it really is not going, you're not going to limit really anything with live scope. It is going to be what it is. You either have to eliminate it or let it all go. And letting it all go, you can put things out there so you can't get more transducers, but it's really not limiting live scope. Which, whatever, I don't really care about any of that stuff. I'm just talking about the MLF. Seems like, I will give them credit. And like I said, I give MLF credit, parts of MLF credit. I've always given Toyota tournaments and championships. I've always talked about them. It seems, how about this? It seems at the lower levels, they try to appease most fishermen at the lower levels. I'm cool with, like, you can't just please everyone, and you don't want to just go. Sometimes you have to stand on your own and say, this is how we're going to do things no matter what, and stand on that ground. Like, that's okay. Something like this, they're like, hey, this didn't look good, let's change it. That's them listening to their anglers. Bass does it, and it's like they never even thought about their anglers in this whole deal. I don't know what Bass does. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me what they do. They're going to do what they want to do. Hopefully I just want all these companies to start I hope they just start making reasonable, common sense thought decisions moving forward. I don't think this MLF deal and the screen size was that big of an issue, so I don't think it got blown up. But I will say, hey, at least they looked at it and go, hey, use a little common sense. It's not that big of a deal. Let's move forward. Move on. Let's go. So, wanted to bring that up. Stay tuned for the video on the complainers. They talk about guys on YouTube complaining, like some of us, about certain things. Go read some of our comments and see what we have to deal with, because I'm about to bring that up, and it is something else. Stay tuned for that one, guys. See y'all.